Is your quantum change moment about to happen? You know that feeling when the air seems to crackle with possibility, when every cell in your body senses that something is about to shift? That's the universe whispering to you. What if I told you that whisper is growing louder? That the moment your life pivots might be closer than you realise? Most people move through their days half asleep, following routines and rules they never consciously chose. But you've always sensed there was more to this existence. That restlessness humming in your veins isn't some random malfunction. It's your soul preparing for what psychologists William Miller and Janet C. Baca call a quantum change in a book with the same name, which are those rare, electrifying moments when your entire perspective rewires itself in an instant. According to the book, quantum changes are vivid, surprising, benevolent, and enduring. Let me ask you something personal. Have you ever experienced a moment of such piercing clarity that it rearranged your understanding of everything, where some fundamental truth about your life snapped into focus with such force that you could never unsee it? That's the spark of quantum change. And if you're the kind of person who thinks deeply, who values authenticity over approval, who's been called too intense or too quiet your whole life, then you should know this. You're exactly the type of person these transformations seek out. Part 1. According to the book, Quantum Change, there are two types of changes, the insightful type and the mystical type. The authors say, insightful quantum changes have a quality of growing out of life experiences. However, they go on, mystical transformations or epiphanies are experienced as quite out of the ordinary, qualitatively different from insightful turning points. Deep thinkers possess a quiet power that most of the world fails to appreciate. Remember the last time you tried sharing one of your insights with someone, only to watch their attention wander? That disconnect wasn't because your idea lacked merit, it was because most people live their entire lives skating across the surface of things. They're content to stay in the shallows, but you're a deep-sea diver of the mind, exploring territories most will never visit. Carl Jung observed this about introspective, intense people. He believed we all emit a kind of energy, an aura that broadcasts our inner world. The more self-aware you become, the more your mere presence can unsettle others. Not because you're doing anything wrong, but because your authenticity reflects the masks they're still wearing. Schopenhauer framed it even more starkly when he wrote, "The more unintelligent a man is, the less mysterious existence seems to him." You see the mystery everywhere. You question, you ponder, you refuse to accept easy answers. And in a world that rewards conformity, this makes you different in ways that often get mislabeled as flaws. Part 2. Here's what they don't tell you. The very quality of your depth and your relentless introspection is what prepares the ground for quantum change. While others drown out their inner voices with noise and distraction, you remain attuned to the subtle signals. You hear the whispers of your soul when most people can't even hear themselves think. Insightful quantum change rarely arrives without subtle warnings. There's usually a long build-up, a series of moments where you feel increasingly disconnected from the life you're living. Maybe it's that well-paying job that somehow leaves your soul feeling starved. Or those relationships where you constantly perform emotional labour without reciprocity, that persistent sense that you're playing a role rather than living authentically. These aren't random frustrations, they're signposts. Your psyche is trying to deliver an urgent message. This way of being isn't working anymore. Psychologists have a term for this discomfort, cognitive dissonance. It's that mental friction that arises when your actions don't align with your truth. Most people respond to this discomfort by numbing out, scrolling endlessly, shopping, drinking, staying busy. But you do something far more courageous. You sit with the discomfort. You examine it from all angles. And this willingness to face what others avoid makes all the difference when transformation comes knocking. Then comes the catalyst, the moment when everything changes. For some people, it arrives dramatically, losing a job, ending a long relationship, surviving a health scare, or in a flash of light that comes out of nowhere. For others, it comes quietly, a sentence in a book that hits like lightning, a stranger's offhand comment that unlocks something profound, or simply a Tuesday morning when you look in the mirror and realise with sudden clarity, I can't keep living this way. Part 3. What's fascinating about these moments is how they feel simultaneously like destiny and yet completely earned. All those hours you spent journaling, all those books you absorbed, all those nights staring at the ceiling, wrestling with existential questions, that wasn't wasted time. That was your psyche preparing for this exact moment. Research into insightful quantum change reveals it often follows a distinct pattern. First comes disillusionment, the growing realization that your current path isn't working. Then comes awareness, the sudden ability to see possibilities that were invisible before. Finally comes the decision point, making a choice that aligns with your deeper truth. The The crucial insight here is that these transformations aren't forced through sheer willpower. They're passive and they're recognized. It's less about effort and more about surrender, finally listening to what your soul has been trying to tell you all along. Part 4. The most profound mystical quantum changes blur the line between psychology and mysticism. People report out-of-body clarity, timelessness, or a voice, internal or external, delivering irreversible truth, what one subject called God rearranging my mental furniture. Miller and C. Baca found these experiences share traits with spiritual awakenings, awe, surrender, and a permanent loss of fear. The kicker, they happen to atheists and believers alike, suggesting the mind has its own sacred wiring. Not all mystical quantum changes involve visions or epiphanies. Some whisper, like suddenly understanding a lifelong pattern, or seeing a stranger's face and knowing they'll matter. The authors describe these as moments of grace, where logic takes a back seat to a deeper intelligence. One subject put it simply, it was like remembering something I'd never been taught. Part 5. If you're someone who needs solitude to recharge, who finds small talk painful, who comes alive when learning or creating, who's been accused of overthinking, then you should know something important. You're not broken. You're perfectly designed for this kind of life-changing transformation. There are specific reasons why people like you are particularly primed for quantum changes. You've developed an unusual tolerance for discomfort. While others flee from difficult thoughts, you examine them. You've learned to trust your inner voice even when it contradicts conventional wisdom. You spot patterns and make connections that others miss. All those years you've been told you're too sensitive or too serious. Well, this isn't some personality defect, it is your greatest strength in disguise, preparing you for this exact moment of awakening. Part 6. The aftermath of quantum change isn't some magical paradise where life becomes effortlessly easy. In many ways it becomes more challenging, but in a different, more meaningful way. You might find certain relationships falling away as you outgrow them. Long-held assumptions about your path might crumble. You may experience moments of profound loneliness, even in crowded rooms, but you'll also discover something remarkable. Flashes of startling clarity, the joy of attracting people who truly understand you, and most importantly, the electric aliveness of finally inhabiting your authentic self. Carl Jung once wrote that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. What he didn't mention is the price of that privilege. Becoming yourself means shedding who others said you were supposed to be. It means disappointing people's expectations. It requires the courage to stand in your truth even when the world pushes back. Part 7. So, how can you tell if your quantum change moment is approaching? There are unmistakable signs. If you're feeling increasingly restless with your current situation, if you're noticing meaningful coincidences everywhere, if your dreams have become unusually vivid, if you're oscillating between excitement and terror about the future, then yes, your moment is likely near. The real question isn't whether this transformation will come, it's how will you respond when it does? Will you rationalize it away as stress? Will you delay it with endless preparations, or will you find the courage to lean into the change, even when every instinct screams to play it safe? Part 8. Here's the secret they don't teach you. You don't have to wait for your dramatic moment. You can choose your quantum change right now, today. Start by saying no to something that drains your spirit. Carve out time for what truly engages you. Write down what you'd do if no one was watching. These aren't just small actions, they're powerful signals to your subconscious that you're ready for transformation. And if you want to understand more about how these transformations work, how to recognize them, navigate them, and integrate them, then pay close attention, because the most fascinating part isn't the moment of change itself, it's what comes after. Once you've experienced quantum change, there's no going back to who you were before, and that is the beginning of everything.